Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
Welcome back to FPL Graduates. Welcome back to another video. Where in today's video, we're going to be talking about the hidden gems of FPL this season. As always, if you are enjoying the content so far this pre-season, make sure to hit subscribe. 70% of you haven't yet subscribed, but you keep coming back and watching the videos. So make sure you don't miss another one and subscribe now. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
Okay then, so getting into our first hidden gem of this video, and it's going to be Antoine Semenyo from Bournemouth. 5.5 million in the game this year. Obviously moved from a forward to a midfielder, so we're looking at extra points for a goals and potentially an extra point for a clean sheet if they do keep them. Last season he had 8 goals and 4 assists. His expected goal involvement though was a little bit lower. It was just under 7, so he's basically outperforming his XGI by almost double, which is not necessarily a good sign, but I think with the type of player he is, he doesn't really get high XG opportunities. So like he'll score goals from outside the box, for example, or in tough situations. So it's something to take into consideration when sort of looking at a player like this. Fixtures wise for Bournemouth: Forest away, Newcastle at home, Everton away. I don't think it's the worst start in the world, especially for someone around this price who, there's a lot of options, as we previously mentioned, I think in Ben's first draft video, where he had like someone like Gibbs White. You could go Elanga, you could go Hudson-Odoi, you could go Andreas Pereira. There are a plethora of options at 6.5 and under. What's your thoughts on Semenyo, Ben? Do you think the position change is like a positive, or do you think there's better options elsewhere?
I think it's a positive that he's had the position change, and I think he's going to be an option throughout the season. But the start is quite tough. Like the first 10 game weeks are a bit of a tough one. But after that point, let's see how Bournemouth are, and they could be in a good situation. I think he is good value at 5.5. I think he's also been priced correctly. I think if it was 6 million, we maybe wouldn't be talking about him as an option there. But he's a decent option. He's one that is worth considering. 1.5% owned currently as well, so a bit of a differential. I mean, you could even sort of look at just having him in for game week 1, Forest away, and then seeing how he does. If he doesn't do well, maybe that can be a risk player to own. But like I said, you can only own a couple of these sort of types of players. So it's just making sure you get that right one. Okay, so next up, we've got a really interesting one. It's Morgan Rogers of Aston Villa. He is a midfielder this year and priced at just 5 million. Some of the stats that you see are pointing towards him being an avoid, and some are pointing from being an absolute gem. Last season, he only made 8 starts in the Premier League, but did get 3 goals and 1 assist. So the returns were absolutely ridiculous per 90. Expected goal involvements per 90, about 0.24. So not too bad, not the greatest in the world, but the fact that he overproduced so massively on such a little amount of data means that we can't really say for sure what he thinks he's going to do. However, he has started off pre-season very well, hasn't he, Josh?
Yeah, he has indeed. And I think the thing here with Aston Villa, there's a lot of outgoings and a lot of incomings at the moment. So pre-season is going to really help us sort of determine whether Morgan Rogers is even a starter for Aston Villa. Obviously, they have just sold, well, they're potentially selling Moussa Diaby. So you'd think that frees up a spot. But then they have just signed also that Philogene, I think that's how you pronounce his name, from Hull City. So there's players coming and going. Obviously, they signed Illing Jr. as well, who can play on the wing as well. So there's just a plethora of options, and I don't think anyone really knows who's going to start in that attack other than Ollie Watkins and Leon Bailey. So yeah, for me, he's definitely a wait and see, but obviously if he does get those starts, we've seen he can score goals, and I must admit he did look quite lively when watching him. I remember the game against Chelsea at Villa Park, he looked really, really good there. So yeah, for me, he's a wait and see, but for £5 million, you're talking like bench fodder pricing, he could be a game breaker. Okay then, so moving on to our next hidden gem, and it is a forward, and it's Chris Wood. £6 million for Nottingham Forest, who have a really decent fixture run to start the season. One of the best in the league, I'd actually say, to start the season. First 3, Bournemouth at home, Southampton away, Wolves at home. Can't really complain with that. Obviously, Wood himself started only 20 games last season, but got 14 goals and 1 assist. So an absolute bagsman as well. And it wasn't as if he was overperforming his data. He had almost 13 XGI as well. So really decent numbers from Chris Wood, from a player who at points definitely did go through spells of form, but I wouldn't have personally thought that he got that many returns before finding out that data when making these graphics. So yeah, decent option. Obviously, he will have probably the penalties as well. We've seen when he is on the pitch, he does take penalties for Nottingham Forest, which is a massive, massive plus, especially with the types of players that Forest have in their attack. Alanga, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White, tricky players who tend to win a lot of fouls. So yeah, a good option for me. What's your thoughts on him, Ben?
Yeah, a decent option at 6 million for a side that do score goals. The first three I think is the most appealing thing about Chris Wood in terms of the fixtures. If he can get, starts in all three, minutes in all three, then he will score against probably one or two of those teams in the opening three fixtures, which is really, really nice. I do see him as a bit of a short-term option, so it will be a fairly quick transfer out. But the fact that you can sort of look to plan those transfers out quite early on and sort of have a plan, maybe even to game week 4 and 5, making 3 or 4 transfers, then I think you're in a pretty good spot and a pretty good position, even with getting them in your team.
Yeah, definitely agree. And something we didn't just mention as well is that Taiwo Awoniyi, he should be missing the start of the season due to injury again. So in terms of his safety of minutes, unless they bring in someone else, I'd expect Wood to start in that number 9 role.
Okay, so moving on, and we've got a defender for you now, priced at just 4 million. Valentin Barco of Brighton, 2.6% owned, potentially going to be the starting left wing back for Brighton. The new manager that is coming in prefers operating with a 5 at the back system, and that will mean Barco at left wing back. Sort of the only option that Brighton really have there at the moment, with Estepinian being out injured. He signed for Brighton last season. He did only make 3 starts in the Premier League last year, and actually sort of didn't do too badly. Had a bit of sort of goal involvement and sort of didn't quite get a goal and assist, but was, the XGI wasn't so bad at all. So looking pretty decent. And I think for the price point of 4 million, getting that attacking player in a team like Brighton that's that attacking could be a really good option, despite the tough fixtures to start the season.
Yeah, definitely agree. It'll be an interesting one with Brighton because I think we're going to see like a proper culture shock in terms of the way that they play compared to under De Zerbi to this new manager. Obviously, as you mentioned, he plays like a 5-back system. I think that St. Pauli last season, who he was manager of, conceded like some of the least expected goals conceded in Europe. So it's like a Jose Mourinho regen who's taken over Brighton right now, which is good news for Brighton because they did concede a lot of goals under De Zerbi, and like you mentioned, there's no real left wing back option with Estupiñán out until maybe mid-September. We're talking maybe game week 5 for a return for him. So yeah, a really nice option, and like we say, cheap as chips, so you can't go wrong. Okay then, so moving on to our last hidden gem, another defender as well. It's going to be Anthony Robinson from Fulham. £4.5 million and a decent start to the season for Fulham. Obviously, United away is not ideal, but United have been pretty poor at home, and Fulham did beat them there last season, so that could be a potential positive. And then game week 2, they've got Leicester at home. Game week 3, Ipswich away. So, 2 newly promoted sides in their opening 3 fixtures is really nice. Obviously, Robinson himself started 37 games last season, which is absolutely phenomenal. Really nailed down that left back spot. Fulham themselves kept 9 clean sheets, which was pretty decent, to be fair. One of the better defences in the league last season for sure. No goal threat from him really, but he did get 6 assists. So decent numbers there, considering how many games he played. And I think for 4.5 million, it's not bad considering those game week 2 and game week 3 fixtures. What's your thoughts on him, Ben? Do you think he's the best Fulham defender, or do you think there's better options elsewhere in that team?
Don't think there's actually too many better options in that Fulham defence from Robinson. Like his goal involvement, he's got that threat there. Maybe not in terms of scoring the goals, but assisting. He's been very sort of attacking down that side. Again, I see him in a similar vein as Chris Wood. He's a fairly short-term option with the good fixtures in game weeks 2 and 3. But he's not one that you're probably going to look at keeping for the season, because despite them keeping 9 clean sheets, I wouldn't trust them every week to keep a clean sheet against anyone, really. That's just the nature of a, let's be honest, bottom half side team. So yeah, a really decent option for those 2 game weeks where he's got really, really high upside. So I do think taking the risk and the punt on him could be worth it if you're sort of not taking too many other risks within your team.
Okay then, so that wraps up our hidden gems for FPL 24-25. Let us know if we've missed any in the comments, any players that you think is a hidden gem going to start the season.
Yeah, and as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL Graduates. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
Later. Have a good pre-season, everyone.
So you